Let's move on now to the Buffalo Bills 2023 season prediction video, where we break down all of the games with the Bills 2023 schedule and go over their overall floor, ceiling, and then also playoff probability. But before we do that, if you have not already, smash that subscribe button. Also ring the bell. Help Ryan and I reach our goal, getting to 2,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL season. That will mean that there'd be a lot more content coming out between now and September 7th, including, once when the season starts, a fun season-long competition where Ryan and I will predict and make videos on every single NFL game. So if you want to see all of our Bills prediction videos throughout the entirety of the season, be sure to smash that subscribe button and also ring the bell to get notified. And Ryan, let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
As I mentioned, we went over every single game in the NFL for every team, including the Bills, and predicted the wins and losses. And some games here, as you will see, that are ties. And those are going to be kind of what we feel are going to be key swing games and kind of just give an overall feel as well to where Ryan and I feel the Bills will fall in. So right now we have their record being 7-7-3. And we do think the Bills are going to take a little bit of a slide this year. As we saw, they started to fall to some of the other like top AFC teams and not – I feel like they're not really up there now in that upper echelon of AFC teams. I think the Bengals have clearly surpassed them as the number 2 team. And I think the Jaguars are nipping on their heels. And you can make an argument as well, depending on if Kellen Moore is the right guy, like maybe the Chargers now will easily be able to contend with them. And so with Aaron Rodgers coming over to New York now, there's just a lot of those question marks that are coming up into the air. And the Bills had an okay offseason. They did lose a couple of key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. So that being said, 7-7-3, we feel they're going to be in that 7-10, 10-7 type range, fringe playoff team, but also potential division winner depending on how the AFC East does. I mean, the AFC, they're only 2 games between what we predict the New York Jets. I think we had them with 9 wins. The Bills were at 7 wins. So it is the division is still in the realm of possibility for the Bills. Don't think that is a foregone conclusion that they're not going to make the playoffs. But just looking at it from the outside in, I think they are regressing a little bit. I think they might have to go through a little bit of rebuild, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that might be a little tough, I think, for Bills fans to hear, because I think you look at the offseason additions and Dalton Kincaid, and then they got Osiris Torrance, both of those guys in the draft. But I just think you look at this defensive side, they lost Tremaine Edmonds, who was the kind of the heart and soul of that defense. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are both in their early to mid 30s, I think, as well as who's the linebacker for them? Matt Milano. I think he's getting up there in age as well. So, and then like the Von Miller as well, 33, coming off a torn ACL. Not exactly a recipe for a super successful season. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Bills do. I do like some of the upgrades they've made at the offensive line with Osiris Torrance. I hope that they establish a little bit more of like a standard run game. We've kind of been asking them to do that for a couple seasons now, actually.
Yeah.
But they have a pretty tough start to their schedule. They do have to play at the Jets. Aaron Rodgers isn't playing in the preseason, so they should win that game. Aaron Rodgers also historically has a really slow start to the year.
I wouldn't say should. I would just say, like, if we had to predict, just in the game, I would feel like the Bills would probably win that one. But they absolutely could lose that game. I mean, the Jets defense is still one of the best, if not the best in the league.
And it gave them a lot of trouble last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting game. They should beat the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders will pose too much of a threat. The Commanders is actually a little bit of a tricky game with how successful, I guess, that defensive front can be. And so
that's what, like, the Bills won't be able to run the ball at all during that game unless they fix their running problems. They're not going to be able to run the ball at all during that game.
And then I think this is where they hit like a little bit of a tough stretch. The Dolphins, they presented a lot of threats last year in the playoffs with Skylar Thompson. Jaguars will spend that whole week in London before this game because they play the Falcons in London in week 4. So that's a huge advantage for the Jaguars. They don't have to play a game and then travel over there. They have to go to New England, and New England, I think, really figured something out in week 18 against the Bills. as well as then they have a pretty easy game against the Buccaneers. Then they have to go to Cincinnati, who handily, I don't want to say walloped them, but I was never really in question that Cincinnati was going to win that game.
Yeah.
So
let's pause right here if I'm remembering correctly. I think that this is going to be a key point in the season for the Bills.
Yeah.
And if you break it up into two halves, the first part, there are tough games for the Bills, but much more doable on the first half. But then if you go to the second half of the season, it is significantly more tough. So even then, if you start actually with the Bengals game, I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to win here. Broncos, they should win. But once again, I mean, Broncos can be one of those teams who knows kind of what's going to happen. Everyone remembers from last year, but people forget how good that defense really actually was. But Jets game's going to be tough. Eagles game is going to be very tough. I don't see them winning that game. Chiefs game, I know they beat them in the regular season last year, but I just feel like they're not going to win that game, especially this late into the season. Cowboys, I think, match up well against them. Chargers, I think, match up well against them. Another tough game against the Patriots, and then Miami seems to play them really well also. So this is what I was going to say. The Bills just in general have a very tough schedule, especially on the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So if they don't make hay in the first part of the season, I think it's going to be really tough for them in the long run. It'll feel like it'll be a playoff game every single week. Like week 11 or 12.
Yeah, and that's just a hard pace to keep up with, especially I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Josh Allen to come out and just basically carry this team to the playoffs. And I think he can do that. I just think it's really hard for him to go out there and do it by himself, especially Stephon Diggs is getting older. Also, I am starting to question his commitment to the team. He vocally the last 2 seasons has been very upset with the end result to all the work that this team has put in. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I just think you look at this team, and I think at best they've plateaued while the rest of the AFC has gotten even better.
I think that's a safer assumption because it's like you mentioned, like they lost Jermaine Edmonds or some guys are getting older, and like I don't think that's a clear indication of regression, but more of a plateau. You're right. Yeah. It's like I think the Jaguars are another great example. I think the Jaguars are going to be a great one to stay. And I think that's going to be a game to really see, like, are the Jags now the number 3 team in the AFC? Yeah. Because then you can start having that conversation, like, are the Bills actually regressing? And so there's one more stat, and you don't have to pull it up. I think this is just going to be the overall indicator for the Bills season. But the stat against playoff teams, they were 1-7-1.
Yeah.
And that I think is going to be – I think that is going to kind of sum up the Bills season. And it kind of go off what I just said and the conversation that we just had is I think a lot of teams are rising up to the occasion while the Bills are giving them the opportunity to rise up, and they're not also continuing to improve.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be a really interesting season for the Bills. We could say all this, and then they could be a 11, 12, 13 win team.
They'll go 21-0.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just think you look at they were in cap hell this year. They lost more players than I think that they brought in, especially at key positions. And so it's just going to be interesting to watch. I'm really excited to see kind of how this AFC East plays out. So let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on how you think the Bills are going to do in 2023. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.